They're all in this together. In fact, if I had to make a statement about finances for America, Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan Chase run the United States government. It's as simple as that. Now, how we know they don't have any gold is they've been selling or swapping gold to melt. Now, the last thing you get rid of when you have gold, if you're a seller, is gold melt. Those are gold coins that were melted down during the 30s. Those coins are about 0.90 instead of 0.98 or whatever the standard is for acceptance of gold by other nations.
Okay, we're going to take a 4-minute break. We're going to talk about Japan. Is it true how bad it is with Japan now that we're going to be losing, that they are saying no to the dollar? And then also, what happened to gold? Why did it drop $10 or $20? We'll be back after this 4-minute break with Bob Chapman, theinternationalforecaster.com. Here, Bob Chapman, and if you would like to get a copy of the newsletter, if you've never tried it before, you can get a complimentary copy. The phone number is 877-479-8178. Earlier in the first hour, we covered the story about Japan abandoning America. Bob Chapman, what do you know about how serious this story is? It's not being covered on television right now, but if what is true about Yukio Hatayama, the Japan's new leader, the prime minister, if this is true, I think we're in a world of hurt immediately.
First of all, you got to understand the background. After World War II, when the Japanese signed the peace treaty with the United States, a lot of machinations went on. Part of the deal was that of all the things that the Japanese had stolen from Asia during the course of the war, which actually began in the early 1930s, the U.S. was to get half of it. And also, the Japanese had hidden gold and silver and jewels and things, mostly in the Philippines. And so that was part of the deal. And the other part of the deal was that the emperor would be phased out. They had to have a goat, so they hung Tojo, who was the war minister. And they also made a deal whereby the Japanese would cooperate with the people who ran the United States government, not the government itself, the people who ran it, and they would guarantee that the vested interests, Mitsubishi, who built the Zero airplane, and many, many other things of implements of war, and all of the other cartels that had been in place. Actually, it was corporatist fascism. And it still is today, incidentally. And these major corporations were left to do as they want. And they were really the ones that planned the war from the other side. And so the evolutionary process has come to today, and the U.S. has essentially dictated to Japan, you're going to do this and you're going to do that, and we're going to keep our troops there. Well, what's happened with this new election is that they're saying, no, we don't want to keep them here anymore. We don't want to continue to have the same kind of relationship with the United States that we've had before. We're not going to continue to mindlessly buy U.S. Treasury and agency paper, and things are just going to be different. And now the biggest export market for Japan is no longer the United States, it's China. And so they've sort of banded together economically, whereas the participation with America is going to wane over the coming years.
Okay, but where do we see, though, I mean, with Hatayama, I mean, right after he took office, he said we need to distance ourselves from the American dollar. Now, if this happens, you know, and that's where we're set to borrow a whole bunch of money to keep our, our cities and states going. If we no longer can borrow money from Japan, and they don't accept the dollar, then are we not looking at a major inflationary period?
Yes, and that has to be explained. The Japanese have not been buyers really for about 3 years. This last month, they in China bought, but I think it was for show only.
When you're saying bought, what are you talking about?
It will bring about higher inflation. And how this happens is that these were the two biggest buyers of U.S. Treasury and agency paper. And if they stop, the Fed's going to have to buy it. And the Fed creates money out of thin air, and that's hyperinflation.
Okay, back in 4 minutes with Bob Chapman. Stay tuned. This is Joyce Riley. We're going to get back to our guest today, Bob Chapman, who is the editor of the financial newsletter, theinternationalforecaster.com. And your response to what Ted had to say, you still bully on gold there, Bob Chapman?
I certainly am. And interestingly, 90% of the people who write about gold think it's going to go down, and I think that's wonderful. Because the contrarian view is usually right. The mob, the lemmings are usually wrong. And so we're approaching a time here when this market is going to turn around very, very quickly. And I think we're seeing that this morning. Gold, they just knocked it down, and it turned around and went right back up again. And Monday is usually a dreadful day for gold because our government is usually in there manipulating it downward every Monday, along with silver and sometimes commodities, and jacking up their Dow Jones Industrial Average, which is up 92 points this morning. But in reference to what Ted said, I think the reinflation started this past May, and I think it's really going to start to accelerate this fall. And next year, we're going to see very high inflation rates. And this is what the dollar is fighting, because the dollar is the gold is denominated in dollars. And as Ted said, it was early May. We were at 89.5 on the dollar index. We're around 76.91 this morning. Having rallied from 76 in the last few days, last week, I'm sure, with the help of the United States government. And they're stuck. They can't get out of the position they're in. There's just no way out for them. And so the dollar is going to have to be sacrificed. And they're talking about using SDRs, and SDRs are useless. I mean, they're no better than the dollar. There's nothing backing them. And so that tells me that they're desperate to find an alternative. I mean, a normal alternative would be to take 20 currencies and use them together with a gold base on them. And then everybody in trade internationally would want to use that index. But they're not going to that. And they don't want any control whatsoever. They want to do anything they want to do. Most of the nations have sold off most of their gold. There are not many nations left that have gold. And so their ability, the central banks, to be able to manipulate markets and keep gold down is waning. It gets worse and worse for them every day.
Okay, so what you're saying is that
Geithner was referring to in his speech on Friday. Whoa, yeah, we can keep it down. And I get a bridge for sale, too.
So what they're saying, or what you're saying, is that eventually the lid is going to blow off of gold, that they are artificially manipulating this, as you've said many times, and it's not very long before the lid goes off of gold. And what are they predicting now? What are you and others predicting? We'll ask him that after this 3-minute break. What are they predicting that gold will go to in the near future? I know they're not perfect. They're not, but they're like anybody else, but we want to know. Stay tuned. Back in 3 minutes.